What I've realized over the course of my healing journey is that it's not been about learning more, but forgetting what I've learned through conditioning, through family values, through the constructs. And as I was able to kind of unlearn that, I could uncover what I had forgotten underneath. So I
Mhm.
remember when I was teaching yoga, I taught a yin yoga class, and I'd always say, we are forgetting what we learned and remembering what we've forgotten, how to be at ease in our body. And that has translated through this book and through all the work that I've done, because all these beliefs I had about myself, a lot of them were inherited. A lot of the constructs were, it's like I signed a contract, but I didn't read the fine print. And I don't even remember signing the contract. So letting go of some of these constructs and belief systems, and then just really remembering who I am underneath, so that I don't feel like we need to change or fix. We just need to remember what we forgot. I had someone once tell me, you don't know what you don't know that you don't
Exactly.
know.
Ex
And
Yeah.
and I don't think it's that we don't know, we just have forgotten,
Mm.
really, because the noise of everything else has overshadowed and overpowered our inner knowing, and we're conditioned to not listen to that, but to listen to, I remember when I first decided I was gonna start saying no, what I would do instead of saying no outright, I'd say, "Well, I'm learning this new word." And they go, "Really? What is it?" And I'd say, "No." And so it's kind of a passive aggressive way of saying no without actually saying no. So it kind of
Right.
got me into the habit of, being able to say no, because
Mhm.
I was overextending myself. And I just didn't have the capacity with 4 children to step. Once you say yes, everybody comes to your door. Will
Exactly.
you volunteer for this? Will you take on that? Will you? And I was always saying yes. And then I realized, wow, I can say no. And so that was my practice was, "Oh, I'm learning this new word," because it was a new word for me to say no. We often think of boundaries as a no.
Well,
Boundaries are just a hard no, but they can also be a door to learning more about ourselves instead of this cage that we hide behind. And so then allowing ourselves to get a little curious and maybe use them as guideposts.
Mhm.
And and this was introduced to me in this last year, that we have our comfort zone, and we have the stretch zone, and we have the panic zone. And so it's trying to stay in that stretch zone. And sometimes, that guidepost moves out a little bit. That boundary shifts and moves. So it's fluid and it moves, and staying
Can you
within that
talk about
stretch.
that?
Yeah, there is a juicy story. You want me to start with that?
Sure, let's hear.
Okay. So I was divorced after 36 years, and really kind of navigating the whole sexual scene of dating. And I was introduced to this lovely practice called Kwadoshka, and it was a sacred sexuality intimacy workshop. And I had done it before, and it was not as much fun as I had anticipated, because there was a lot of healing that took place during it. I thought I was going for something else, and but it was amazing and it was beautiful, and I wrote about that in another chapter. But so I went back the second time thinking this was gonna be, easy, and I was in a different space and place, and the facilitator asked us, we were talking about pleasure boundaries, and she asked us if we had any hard no's, and my hand just went. I sometimes have this reflexive speak it. I raised my hand, and she called on me and she said, "Kimber, what is your hard no?" And I said, "A threesome. It's always been a no." And she said, "I'm curious where that no comes from. Is it from an experience? Is it from a belief? Is it from societal conditionings?" And I couldn't answer it. I remember after I said that hard no, I kind of got curious about it. I was like, huh, why is that such a hard no? Where does that idea that a threesome is a no? And so we talked a little bit more about boundaries and our pleasure boundaries, and how sometimes we have these hard no's, but they're actually limiting our ability to really feel and be in our fullest extent of pleasure. So as the weekend went by, it was a very safe container. I mean, it's amazing the container that they're able to make for us to explore things that may have been hard nosed for us. The very last ceremony that we did, one of the ladies, she opted out. And so there was an extra gentleman in the room that didn't have a partner. And so Amara said, was anybody willing to open up the space and allow this other gentleman to join in the group? And I looked at my partner and I was like, what do you think? And it was an amazing place for us to be curious, to explore, we had very, very strong boundaries. You know, we sat in a circle and I said my boundaries. They repeated them back to me so that there was clarity. And then they said their boundaries and their boundaries. And we just set an intention for curiosity. And what would it be like to explore with 3 people instead of just 2? And it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. And it was made possible because I felt so safe, because my agreements and my boundaries within this container were honored and heard. And I didn't feel pressured. I didn't feel like I had to do anything. And I knew I could change my mind if at any time things got uncomfortable. And it was a lovely experience to be in the presence of these 2 gentlemen and in our curious little states of mind. And so I realized then that I started looking at some of my boundaries that were hard nosed. Where do those no's come from? Is it something that I was taught, that was put on me? And so as I became more curious around some of my no's, I was able to step into more pleasure, more creative expression, more vulnerability, more growth. So it was an amazing experience and I wouldn't change it for the world. And it's not something that I would, encourage just anyone to do. I mean, if their no is a no, then stick with it. But after I put my hand down, my body was kind of like, wait a minute. Is this really a no? And so I really listened to what was going on with my body and I asked myself questions. And so, yeah, so my boundaries now, I don't just see them as, like I said, they're more like guideposts. They're not this cage that I had created where I can kind of stick my toe in, see how that feels. And if it still doesn't feel good, then to back out and stick with my original no. So that was my experience. And I go into a lot more detail in my book, but I don't want to give you all the secrets. Who knows? Maybe I could. Maybe I could. I met my husband and we have done some of these workshops together. And between the 2 of us, we have given ourselves permission to kind of explore the edges and to move beyond our pleasure boundaries. And what I have found is that sometimes when things just feel too good or they're too much, it's like, no. But when I can just kind of pause and go, okay, wait a minute, why am I saying no? Why am I limiting the amount of pleasure that I'm feeling through this experience? And it doesn't even have to be sexual. I mean, I think sometimes it happens, on vacation or at Christmas time. It's like, okay, this is getting too good. Is it because we're waiting for the hammer to fall? Or so just kind of softening those boundaries a little bit and seeing how much more pleasure that I can bring into my life. And it's been a lot of fun. Right. It's almost like it's foreign. It's frightening. And it's like, oh shit, this is too much. This is too much. Well, how much pleasure is too much? Sometimes I feel like, or I'm curious if that resistance doesn't then make it, because they're shifting it to performance. They're performing and they have these expectations being put on them or that they're taking on that, they can't just be taking, they also have to be giving and finding that balance of, okay, wait, this is enough for me. Now I got to go focus on this person.
It actually,
Well, and there's a difference between a climax and an orgasm. So for me, the climax is like that final push and then it's over. So I like to extend the orgasm as long as possible because
Mm.
climax is finale, it's final. And so there's a lot of fun to play in that pleasure space as well. Yeah, dating in my 50s really opened my eyes to so much because I was with the same person since I was 18. And it was a whole new world. And I got to I was on Tinder and they called me Tinder Mama. 'Cause I was Tindering everywhere I went. But I could be whoever I wanted to be in those moments. But going through Kudoshka really helped me realize I needed the heart connection. It was the sex was just empty without the heart connection. And I would leave these experiences, it would be great in a moment, but then it just kind of felt empty afterwards. And then it was like, oh, I don't want to see them again. And so having a heart connection, and there's also this thing called limerence that I learned about myself. They say when you go back to dating after a divorce, you tend to revert back to the age you were when you were last single. So what limerence is, as a young girl, I would get these crushes and I'd have these feelings and I'd think, oh, I'm in love. And when I started dating again, if there was any kind of a connection with the person, I would become infatuated with them and think, oh my God, I'm so in love. And someone told me about limerence. And when I started exploring it, I was like, oh, that's what's happening here. It's not really a connection, it's a chemical reaction that I'm having that I'm confusing for love. And I think sometimes for single people, they go looking for that chemical addiction and then it fades, it doesn't last. And then you
It's
go
a
into the next.
great thing. Did in a while, but
When I come back to the States,
Mm.
I usually go for barbecue or Mexican food. And this trip, it's been,
steak, really?
yeah,
Get steak up.
it's not very good. It's a different kind of a cow.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's a Brahmin,
Okay.
and the meat is just not very good. I feel like the inflammation in my body is on high alert because of all the beef that I've been eating. So
That
yeah,
was-
going back into the dating world and having to explore my boundaries. What are my boundaries? Is
Mhm.
that really my boundary? Am I curious? Can I explore? I wasn't always very safe at times. I realize now looking back. And as I got wiser and smarter in the dating world, for me, it was a social experiment when I would Tinder. I
Yes.
wasn't looking to fall in love. I was a social experiment. And if it worked, great. If not, I could always talk. And I would always meet at the bar. That was a
Oh, good.
boundary. We would always
Good.
meet at the bar.
Yeah.
And the bartender usually knew why I was there and what I was going through. And we
Mm.
had a signal. And if the date didn't go well, I could always turn and talk to the person next to me at the bar. And I could
Mm.
also make a quick escape. So I started setting more boundaries. I would send my girlfriends their phone number and I get the car tag. So I started getting safer and safer as I started exploring that world. And then I met my husband and I never thought I would get married again. And here I am.
Did you meet him through Tinder?
I met him through Match. You know what he did? He's so funny because I was expecting just another one night stand and things went great. And he walked me to the car and he kissed me on the cheek and he sent me home. And I called my girlfriend. I was like, I don't know what just happened. We had a great time, but I came home by myself.
He was setting you up.
He was setting me down. Yeah, he was.
You would want more. Always leave wanting more.
Yeah. So it's been really fun exploring our pleasure boundaries together and through the work that we did through Kudoshka and learning about sex and learning about sexual anatomy and anatomy types and the things. It's like, I remember the first time I went through it, I was like, why are we teaching this to our 16-year-olds?
Exactly.
It's like so taboo and they're learning sex on the internet and through porn and really it's more about the intimacy and building the intimacy and taking our time and exploring those edges and boundaries and doing things with curiosity. And yeah, so Kudoshka was amazing. I highly recommend if anybody is interested. It's Kuodoushka. The whole second section of the book is all about my sexual journey and
Mhm.
healing healing through my sexuality and really pushing some boundaries and doing some things that I never dreamed that as a good Catholic girl that I would ever be doing. Yeah, I'm a recovered Catholic.
You're not.
Yeah. I'm gonna get a little serious here, and I might even get emotional.
Mm.
A no for me would be doing what I've been doing these last 3 weeks, which is taking care of my mom.
Mhm.
And I did a lot of healing work on the mother wound recently and working with Ta. And I was needed to relieve my sister. My mother's husband, just short back, my mother's husband had an accident, then ended up having surgery. Wasn't sure he was going to make it. He was her caregiver. And so I chose to come. And I think that was a big part of it is it wasn't from the outside, it might have looked like there was not a choice, but I always had the choice to say no. And so I chose to come. And because I've been doing so much work to heal the wounds, the traumas, whatever you want to call it, I was able to come and care for my mother, not as the woman who hurt me, but as a woman who needed loving care. And so had you told me 6 months ago that I was going to be spending 3 weeks in Tulsa taking care of my mom to an extreme that no child ever wants to do for their mother, no mother wants a child to do for them, without going into details.
I've been there. I know.
This would have been a hard no for me. And it's interesting how, the healing has felt, it's not linear. It's up and down and over and under. And when I tapped into this mother wound, although I knew it was there, I just had pretty much given up it going anywhere. And I've had some really beautiful moments with her. Actually, I got her into a state of awe and watching a show on the ocean, The Wonders of the Ocean. And during that time, we had some amazing conversations. And so I needed to tell her something that was really hard for me. And I started crying and I said, I really need to share something with you, but it's hard for me to tell you. And she looked at me and she said, you don't ever have to be afraid to tell me anything. And I felt like in that moment, it was our souls having a moment of genuine connection. I haven't seen it much since then, but I needed to hear that. It's like it healed so much in me because I've been afraid of my mother and I didn't realize how afraid I was of her. So this would have been a really hard no for me 6 months ago. And it's been life-changing these last 3 weeks. I've come to Tulsa. I've seen it in new eyes. We are actually kind of considering buying a vacation home in Tulsa. Yeah. And that was always a hard no to ever even think about. I thought I would never set foot in Tulsa again. So yeah, if I stuck with that hard no out of pride or because I had said no and that's just the way it was, I would have missed out on this amazing opportunity to reconnect with my mother in a way I never dreamed possible, to remember memories that had been locked away, that I only had bad memories. And now all these beautiful memories are surfacing, is growing and feeling some of these emotions that I've not allowed myself to feel. I'm feeling more joy and more whole and complete. So less fragmented and defrag. But remember how we used to do that on the computers?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. So, and these little parts, there's been times in this process where I have felt like I was 4. I mean, I felt like I was dealing with a 4-year-old.
Okay.
And then other times where I was 12 again with my raging mother. And this little part of me, she's not disappeared, but she hasn't had to move forward as a shield to protect me or hide behind me. She was kind of peeking through and now she just is kind of supporting me. And so if I had stuck with my guns, to my guns, I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I would have missed out on all of this. So these boundaries as cages, I think, limit our growth. And when we can let them be fluid and soft and expansive, It's kind of like they go hand in hand. An expansive boundary can also be an expansive place for healing. And I've been in the messy middle the last few weeks, and a lot of my hard no's that I really just for years, this was a no, have softened. And I've softened because of it. And then some of them were inherited. They were beliefs that were put on me by someone else's story. And so really getting to the root of what my story was and what my memory is and rewriting that story. I couldn't have done it if I'd stuck to my no. Never. Yeah. I don't know that we have ever had that connection that we had in that moment in my whole adult life, or my whole life period. I saw her through a new lens when that was coming through. And I also realized how important and magical when we're in a state of awe can be. She felt safe. I felt safe. We were both in a state of awe, triggered by this undersea life that we were watching. And it's like all those barriers, all those stories just kind of crumbled. And we had this really sweet moment. And we had a few more after that. Like I'd go into the kitchen and she'd be eating and I'd lean over and she would feed me and we'd giggle about it. But yeah, some really sweet memories that I'll be able to hang on to. And I don't expect them to happen anymore or frequently, or I don't go in expecting to have those moments with her. Otherwise, I'd be disappointed because we have not been showing.
It
That's
was
nice. Yeah.
He said it, how my parents actually showed up in being afraid of being punished. I didn't. I was lying in my ass off.
Well, see,
Yeah.
I learned early on that I didn't have to lie because my mom said it and I tested it. I tested all of it. I was like, you gonna let me if I do this?
And I can remember.
Me that I did that most of my friends are like, you got away with that? I was like, evidently so.
Right. Yeah, I think I had that happen last week. I was like, okay, she told me I could tell her whatever I wanted, whatever I needed. And well, I regretted it. Yeah, it is. It's funny, speaking of favorites, I always thought my sister was the favorite, and she always thought I was the favorite. So perception is there. And I loved getting in trouble with her because she would laugh. She'd
Yeah.
get tickled at my mom, and here I am, and I was the oldest, and I was afraid. And my sister would just bust a gut, and then my mom would get tickled, and so it was always more fun to get in trouble with her.
It's funny, as the youngest, the things that
Well, Les, I have a question for you. You asked me if this was something I thought about doing a workshop on, and I'm curious what that means for you. What questions came up for you?
I was just curious. I didn't have any spin-off questions from it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and I have actually had the opportunity to see parts of your book because Ta's been reading it, and I have had a little bit of, I haven't read the whole thing, but I've seen parts of it. And what I do love is that your book is actually a workshop in and of itself.
Yeah. You had mentioned that to me before, and I hadn't thought about that. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to explore that with my group on school.
Well, it's so interesting the way it's written because it's not just story narrative. It's like, it's story, and then it's like, this is what I did, and this is what you can do.
Oh, that's
And then this is how it changed my life.
Exactly, yeah.
Mm.
And so it is interactive in a deeper way.
Well, and I did that because I knew a lot of my experiences, while for some might be very shocking and not relatable, I wanted to turn it around so that they could relate it to, that they didn't have to go out and go to these extremes that I went through. This is just my story. This is what it took for me. And let me save you maybe a few steps and try this instead, or look at it. So yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
Well, the responses I've gotten from my beta readers, and they haven't been like friends, they've actually been people that have been a part of some of the experiences that I wrote about, have really been encouraging and warms my heart because it was so much fun to write and to put together. And, I asked at one point, I was on a mushroom journey And I was like, why is it taking me so long to learn all of this or to remember all of this? And the message I got was, well, then you wouldn't have had a story to tell. And that was when I took my journaling, because I just been journaling these experiences and
Right.
turned it into this book. So yeah, yeah. And that invisible to invincible, I kept seeing on my Threads account women talking about how they felt so invisible as they're reaching midlife and their kids are leaving the house or they're retiring. And, I'm 63. I moved to Panama a little over 2 years ago and started to surf. And so I'm really wanting to help women see that just because we're in our 60s doesn't mean we have to fade into the background, that we have a lot of wisdom and life experiences to share. And there's this term called Anamkara, and it's a Celtic term, and it's mature women sharing their life experiences with the younger generation. And I'm experiencing that right now in Panama. And the majority of my friends are a lot younger than I am, but there's no ageism, there's no racism. My best friend just moved back to Israel and she's 22. So the connections that I'm finding there, they don't treat me like, an older woman. They treat me like Kimber. And we have a lot of fun together. We laugh together, but they also respect my journey and the work that I've done and the wisdom that I have. And that's helped me to tap into my wisdom, even within the Condor approach, especially with Ta, to have people see me and see my wisdom and reflect that back to me has been unbelievable. Unbelievable. Can I tell you a funny story about age? So when I met Ron on Match, he lied about his age by 10 years. And he never would have popped up into my feed had he used his actual age. And he confessed that the first night we met, but I didn't see a 67-year-old at the time. I saw just this man that I wanted to get to know more.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
yeah, now he's 76 and people think he's younger than I am. Well, it's interesting. When I turned 40, I put on a lot of weight. I was having some mobility issues and I just chalked it up to I was getting older and I just let myself go. I gained a lot of weight. I was quilting at the time and I was really kind of going down this rabbit hole of what an aging woman does, and fortunately I snapped out of that and started taking better care of my body and then started doing the emotional healing work that I've been doing the last 25 years. And
Doing Pilates. Doing Pilates.
I am doing Pilates now.
Yes.
Yes. Pilates and surfing. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I lost my train of thought there. So I don't remember where I was going with that. Exactly.
Flipping the-
And sometimes that is inspiring. I know a lot of these young people that I'm friends with, I'm changing their ideas around what it means to get older and that it doesn't have to look like whatever they had in their head. And I really thought that a lot of the women I would be working with would be closer to my age. I'm actually having some of my daughter's friends reach out to me. And I think they're seeing, wow, okay, so my mom, Becca's mom, which direction do I want to go? Do I want to be surfing and living in Panama when I'm 63, or do I want to be the grandma in a rocker? Not that they are, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It has surprised me, some of the people that have reached out that I've been working with. So they're looking ahead and they're being inspired by I moved away from my grandkids. I moved away from my kids. And I know for some people that's hard for them to wrap their brain around, but I love my kids. I love my grandkids, but I want to live my life and I want to do things that I wasn't able to do when I was a stay-at-home mom with 4 little ones. So I either get applauded or I've lost friendships over it because they just don't get it. No. My son is bringing my grandsons in November down to Panama, and Audrey learned how to surf in California a couple of months ago. I said, hey, Audrey, what do you think about surfing with your grandmother? And he goes, I don't know about that. And I said, well, there's not many kids who can say they went surfing with their grandmother. He goes, yeah, no, there's not. I can't
And you
wait.
started
2 years ago. Yeah. I tried it 11 years ago and I couldn't stand up. I didn't have the flexibility.
Okay.
And I don't know what called me to try it again, but I was like, I'm just going to try. I mean, I'm living in a surf community. I just want to try. And I have an amazing instructor. She's from Russia. She's a Olympiad surfer. My flexibility from the work I've been doing these last few years has increased, and I have not been doing yoga. I've been living my yoga, but I haven't been doing the physical practice. And I had the flexibility and a little bit of the strength. Now I have a lot more strength, but I've had to work on the strength to maintain this squat on the board for as long as I need to. So my goal was to be able to go out by myself without my instructor before my 63rd birthday. And I did.
Yay.
62. Mhm. Today, or just today in general? I mean, like in life.
Today.
Today, well, my husband is here for one more day. He lights me up. Getting to share and be on this podcast with you guys has lit me up. I know that that's in my future to be doing more podcasts around my book. So I appreciate the opportunity to hop on here with you guys. And what else lights me? Oh, going to the Condor. I'm super stoked and getting to do a talk. I'm lit up about that. So a lot of things are lighting me up. And the possibility of going back home in 3 weeks, that really lights me up. To live in a place where I look forward to returning has been such a gift. And to live in a place that I miss and that I enjoy being there, that lights me up. I have like 2.5 weeks before I get to go back home. So,
Oh, yay. Yay.
and yeah, working on this book has lit me up. I feel like I got this renewed sense of purpose in putting together this book and then finding the Condor approach. And things are just kind of coming together with this book, sharing in my women's circles and helping women remember who they are has really lit me up and helped me find what my purpose is. And I think for a lot of women that feel invisible, they don't know what their purpose is. They've lost what that purpose is. And my hope is that I can inspire them to remember, to find, to create a purpose so that they don't feel invisible anymore, but they can feel invincible. And that lights me up.
If there was anything that you could give our listeners, our audience, permission to do, what would it be?
You don't need permission to do anything. You don't need my permission. You don't need his permission, her permission, their permission. If it's something that's going to light you up, just do it. I spent so many years believing I needed others' permission to go back to school, to say no, to, whatever. And when I re-examined that, I realized I was looking for their permission because if I failed, then I had them to, I could say, well, they told me not to. But yeah, I don't think any of us need permission to live our lives for ourselves. And it's not being selfish to choose yourself. And so, yeah, that you don't need my permission to do it, just do it.